at it. And then I'm gonna let our friends in. No, it's not what I meant to share. Okay, well, what on earth? Well, I don't know what to do with that. I have like two screens and I wonder if that's actually awesome. Great. Well, we're so thankful that you've all joined us today for our CHS 101 panels. This is our third annual set of alumni panels, and we have some great people here that I think you're all going to learn so much from. And they're all three individuals that I have learned so much from and just like, so I think you will too. To kick things off, I want to do some introductions so you know who's talking to who. And so here, we'll leave that up while people are chiming in, but I'll start with me. My name is Katie Cannon. I'm the alumni program manager for the college. So I work with alumni, which are people who were students just like you and now have graduated and are doing things across the world in all sorts of areas of health. My desk neighbor always makes fun of me because every time I meet a new alum, I'm like, you will never believe I met the coolest person today. And so I just think that's cool for you to know that you're part of a legacy of people pursuing health for everyone and part of a legacy that fulfills the ASU charter that says we are taking fundamental responsibility for the health of our communities. That's a really big deal and really exciting that we really, all of us get to play a part in that. With that, I just want our ASU staff on the call to introduce themselves briefly. So Amy, if we want to start with you, I mean, I know they know you, but maybe for people who are watching the recording later who might not.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Sharifi. I am the Assistant Director of Student Engagement with the College of Health Solutions. So I help support the college. I do some of the student communication. So students, please check your emails because you get an undergraduate newsletter that I help write. And then I also help just support overall our students on all four campuses and the residence halls, as well as supporting events like this. So that's me.
That's you. Awesome. Amy's a great resource for you all to know about. I'm sure you already know that. And then Raquel, do you mind introducing yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Raquel and I'm a career and industry specialist at Career and Professional Development Services. I'm here to help out with anything career-wise. So this panel is a great opportunity for some career exploration. But at Career and Professional Development Services, we do everything from resume reviews, salary negotiations. So even when you score that dream job, we can help you along the way to make sure that you're getting paid what you deserve. So absolutely stop by our office. We can help out with anything. And looking forward to this event.
Raquel's another great resource. She's close by if you're on the downtown campus, and always good to get those things started earlier rather than later. Mercedes, you want to introduce yourself?
Of course. Hi. Hello. My name is Mercedes Amador, Mercedes Amador. Pronouns are she, her, they, them, and ella. Let's see, I'm the Director of Student Engagement and Retention for the College of Health Solutions. So chances are you've seen me from orientation in 101 for the CHS 101 class. And then some of our programming in person and online, as well as supporting our peer academic leaders across all of our campuses in the residential halls. I also support a team that work with students on a case-by-case basis anytime that you have any issues on your My ASU or enrolling for classes. I do a lot, but this is something that I enjoy. And these are phenomenal individuals that are here to help you paint the picture of what your future is going to look like. So thank you for joining us today.
Great. Okay, I think we're all sufficiently welcomed and I want to see everyone's faces. So, I hope that what you all hear from that is that there are, and I hope you've heard that before this, I know that you have, that there are a team of people here to support you and see you be successful while you're here and after you graduate. So we're all here. If we were in person, I'd do a big group hug, but now the exciting part to me is I want you to, our students here to meet our alumni. And so I'm going to have them each introduce themselves and tell us what you studied, and then tell us a little bit about what you're doing now. Ben, I'll start with you.
All right. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Ben Mesnick. I graduated this past May with my bachelor's in science of healthcare delivery from the College of Health Solutions. Currently, I am a program coordinator at ASU and the University Design Institute. So I work on global education and leadership development for the university and external clients.
It's awesome. It's great. We're so glad to have you, Ben. Kayla, we'll have you go next.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Kayla. I am a current third-year student, PT student at AT Still University. I graduated in 2020 with my degree in exercise and wellness. I do a lot of things right now. Katie knows. I am one of the student special interest group directors for the Academy of Pelvic Health Physical Therapy. I am also on the digital media committee for the Journal of Women's Health Physical Therapy. I also did a couple work study things while I was on campus during my first 2 years. Now that I'm in rotations, I'm not doing that anymore. But yes, I usually have a full plate of things that I do.
That's awesome. Oh, I can't wait for them to hear more about all those things. And last but certainly not least, Tiffany, we'll have you introduce yourself.
I feel like I'm the odd man out here because I didn't actually attend the College of Health Solutions because it wasn't a thing when I went to Arizona State. So I graduated a long time ago from ASU with a Bachelor of Science in Human Nutrition and Dietetics. I spent 5 years as a registered dietitian working for Maricopa County and the state of Arizona. In 2002, I went back to school to earn my PA degree, and I've spent the last 18 years working as a physician assistant. In March of this year, I took a full-time faculty position with the NAU physician assistant program. So clinical, still a dietitian, also still a practicing PA, and now currently an assistant professor for the NAU program.
That's great. You are certainly part of the College of Health Solutions family. We've adopted you, and all of our alums who graduated before 2012. It's our 10-year anniversary. It's an exciting time. Well, great. So lots of different things, career paths, options represented here. So if you are interested in nutrition, physical therapy, other career paths, things around the world, lots of good information ready to be shared today. So I want everyone to start thinking of good questions that you might have for each one of them. You can put those in the chat and we'll answer those at the end. You'll also have an opportunity to ask specific questions in breakout rooms at the end. So that's something to keep in mind. But first, I like to start with something fun. I wonder if each one of you could share like your best ASU memory. It could be with friends, it could have been in class, it's a memory, and anyone can raise their hand and go first. Well, you can just go.
I'll share one. This is,
Sure.
again, knowing that I went to school before most of you were born. I think one of the coolest things I remember at ASU is in my we had to identify a product and then essentially track that product, how it came to market, how it was developed, and go through all these kind of background information to try to understand the concept of how products came to market. And we each had to pick a product and then have it approved by our professor. And at the time, SnackWell's cookies were a really interesting thing because it was kind of this whole new line of low-fat snack foods. So that's what I picked for my project. And I presented it to my professor and he said, "Oh, you probably don't want to do that." And I was like, "Why? I think that'd be really interesting." He said, "Yeah, I developed those cookies, so I don't want to do that as your project." I was like, "Oh, yeah." So I picked another project, but I think it's a real testament to the kind of professors that ASU has a long history of the type of people they select as their professors, and just incredible individuals.
Oh my gosh, that is hysterical. And I love that professor didn't lead with that like the first day of class. If I invented a cookie, that's the first thing that'd be on my syllabus. And say it first thing. Ben, Kayla, you guys, did you have any fun while you were at ASU?
I did. I've been trying to think of my favorite because there have been a lot. But I had a friend group all throughout pretty much my 4 years at ASU, and we would go on a couple camping trips every year. And I feel like those camping trips were like the best experience because we would go to Sedona and just like stay at a campground in the middle of nowhere, and I would just sleep in my hammock, and it was great. And I'm not an outdoorsy person, so that was like a wake-up call for me. It was very new. Like my family, we didn't go camping when I was younger, so it was definitely a new experience, but I loved getting out in nature and just like spending some time with friends that I really enjoy spending time with.
That's same. I mean, I was also an out-of-state student at ASU, and it's cool to be able to experience what Arizona has to offer. There's lots to see. Ben, did you have fun? Were you inside the whole time?
I was not inside the whole time. That actually is a good segue into what I would say is one of my favorite memories. I have many to choose from, but while I was at ASU, I was in the ASU marching band. And so with that came being in a lot of performances for athletics, university events, special events and engagements and things like that. So I would probably say being in the marching band at all of those events kind of combined into one, because you culminate so much pride together, not only being a part of the marching band, but being a part of representing the university on so many levels to so many people. Being at those events, you're absolutely looked at as an ambassador for the university. And so it's something to be very like prideful about and very joyous. And you got to do it with friends and meet amazing people throughout that experience. And so that's what I would probably say is my favorite memory.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I think a lot of what our college experience is about can be the relationships we develop, with friends, organizations, faculty, all sorts of things. Awesome. Well, so if we think about each one of your times on campus, I'm curious how each one of you chose the major that you chose, and if you had to go back, to your 17, 18-year-old self picking that major, what would you say to them, knowing what you know now?
Since I went last, I guess I can start this one.
You're so big on my screen, so we'll go.
So I did not originally start out with the Science of Healthcare Delivery program. I changed my major twice. So I graduated on my third major. So before I go any further, I do want to preface that it is absolutely okay and normal to change your major, to have a change of passion. I know coming in as a freshman for me, I was terrified of changing my major, like it throwing off my plans. What did I work for? It's all gone out the window. I promise that's not the case, and you're not alone. There's so many opportunities to pivot, and finding that discovery is so important and so valuable. So having that, I would have probably liked to put less pressure on myself a little bit freshman year of being so set in stone. This is exactly the career path that I wanted to do, because I came into ASU going towards biology, wanting to become a physician, then changed it to more of a clinical administration route, and then more on the hospital administration. So going through those different phases were definitely very valuable for me. And I appreciated having that sense of discovery through those classes, taking classes that were not in my major map, taking classes in my major map, kind of all coming together to provide the ideas that I wanted to do.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's part of the experience too. As we get to know ourselves better, we understand more of our passions. And yeah, there are a lot of people here that want to help you figure that out. Tiffany, Kayla, how'd you guys pick?
Oh, I guess I'll go. So I actually also changed my major. I started out as a psychology major on the Tempe campus. And I had already known coming into ASU that I wanted to pursue physical therapy. And I knew that I could choose a broad range of different majors. And as long as I got my prerequisite courses in, it would be fine. I actually didn't know about the courses that were offered on the downtown Phoenix campus. And then I had a friend in one of my freshman classes that told me about it. And so I did some research and I was like, oh yes, exercise and wellness. I looked at the courses that were required in that major, and all of them were lining up to, be somewhat physical therapy related and like aiding in that transition to PT school. So I made that switch 2 to 3 months into my freshman year, so pretty quickly. But yes, if I were to say anything to myself, to my 18-year-old self, I would say that kind of similar to what Ben said, it's okay to change your major. It really is. You'll be okay. That's all that I wanted to say.
I think that's such a great point. I'm glad that you both kind of brought that up. For me, I think it's amazing now just in the difference of the opportunities you have, especially with the college that you have now. There's so many more degrees and so many more aspects of healthcare and health in general that you have access to. When I went to school, I initially was going to be a psychology major, and then I dabbled with PT. I knew I wanted to do something in health, but I didn't know what. And so my first year and a half, I was really just kind of taking all these health courses. I took a little science, I took some anatomy and physiology, I took some psychology because I didn't know where I wanted to land. But at that time, the College of Nutrition was under the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. So now the fact that you have all of these disciplines in one spot is so fantastic. And exactly what Benjamin and Kayla said, you don't have to have all the answers right now. You might find next semester, 2 semesters down the road, a year from now, whatever, that there's something that appeals to you more, and there's no harm in kind of exploring those options. This is a decision that's going to kind of go with you for the rest of your life, and it's a pretty big decision. And so certainly make sure that you're comfortable with what you want to do, and it's so okay to change your mind.
True. Yeah. I mean, I think we see that in health as well, in science and in research, and that as we know more, things change and we do things better. And yeah, it's a personal life lesson and a broader one as well. Tiffany, you went through a pretty major career change. Well, what might seem like a major career change. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that, how you ended up first in the being a registered dietitian and then onto a physician assistant. If you could talk a little bit about that and also maybe explain what a physician assistant does.
Sure. So I'll break that down into the 2 parts.
Yeah.
I fell into nutrition essentially. Like I said, I knew I wanted to do something in health. I was taking courses in science and anatomy, and that part really kind of made sense to me. And then I fell into an intro to nutrition course. And I think the first semester of my sophomore year, and that a light bulb went off. And that's when everything, the science, the physiology, everything just kind of clicked. And that really made sense for me. And then as a dietitian, in order to be a registered dietitian, you have to do an internship. So I got my degree. I did my internship at Yavapai County in Prescott for a year, and then you can sit for your registered dietitian exam, which is actually getting ready to change. But so became a registered dietitian and liked the working in the hospital. But at that time, I think the dietitians kind of had to really fight to be considered a member of the healthcare team, much different than now. But it was really a lot of work and a little reward for the clinical side. And so I ended up through my dietetic internship being more enamored with kind of the public health nutrition. So I worked for WIC for a year, and then I transitioned to the state child and adult nutrition programs. And I did that for 5 years, and I really enjoyed dietitian. And if you had asked me then, I never would have changed. And then my mom became terminally ill, and I started having a lot of interactions with clinicians that were amazing and clinicians that were not. And I really, through that experience, wanted to get back into the clinical arena. And I knew that as a dietitian, it probably wasn't going to be the clinical involvement that I was looking for. And so I was deciding between medical school and PA school. And to answer the second part of your question, Katie, so a physician assistant essentially practice medicine under the supervision or with collaboration of a physician. And so at that time, there were bachelor's degrees and master's degrees in PA studies. And so I was basically determining, was I going to get a master's degree in PA studies, or was I going to go back to PA school? And after weighing the options of both, PA school just made more sense to me, especially coming back as a second career. And so I ended up going to PA school at George Washington University. I'm an Arizona native. I never intended to leave Arizona, but when you get into a school like that, you kind of have to go. I went. And for me, I've always gravitated towards those specialties that have nutrition as a base, because nutrition was and is still my first love. So I've practiced in cardiology, bariatric, and general surgery. And most recently, and what I've been doing for the last 5 years, is clinical inpatient gastroenterology. So I still am very fortunate that I get to use my degree, my undergraduate degree, all the time. But it's been an interesting change. And like I said, if you would have asked me when I was in undergrad, I would have said, nope, I'm going to be a dietitian forever. Then, things happen and your life takes a direction you don't expect.
Totally. Yeah. And the dietitian route, you invested time and money and long hours. And so, but I think the cool part of your story is that yeah, exactly. You had a personal experience that drove you, and now they kind of blend together. And that's very much the perspective that we operate from now at College Health Solutions, is how do all of these things work together? And I feel like you're such a great picture of that. So how can you be healthy without good nutrition? How can you have one without the other? It's great. Kayla, you've ended up on a pretty specific career path with some specific interests. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about your decision to go to physical therapy school and kind of how you ended up doing, sort of focusing on what you will eventually focus on once they let you.
Once they let me, yes.
What your passion is.
Yes. So while I was at ASU, actually, my senior year, I had the opportunity to be a TA with one of our professors who taught our exercise testing course. So EXW 420. I don't know if it's the same now, but I took that opportunity, and because I had a very slight interest in trying out some teaching roles. And I actually ended up really liking it. And so that sparked kind of an interest in me for possibly pursuing some sort of education role in the future, probably with physical therapy education, now that I've gone through that and seen what that is like. But just PT in general, I've known that I wanted to do PT since mid-high school, probably, which is a great time to decide that I want to do PT. And I have been an athlete my entire life. So my first personal experience with PT was in that setting from a sports injury. I have played tennis my whole entire life. So I had a shoulder injury, went to a PT, and I thought to myself, wow, this is really cool. I wonder if I could do this in the future. And so that's what I set my mind on, and that's what I wanted to pursue. And so all throughout college, I told myself, yes, I want to work with athletes. I'm very interested in sports PT. Came to my senior year at ASU, and I had an internship at a sports PT clinic, and it was all right. It was okay. Didn't like really light a fire underneath me like I thought it would. And so I came into PT school not really knowing what I wanted to pursue, what setting I wanted to pursue, which I think is the best case scenario, because a lot of people go into PT school thinking that they for sure want to do this setting, and then they end up changing their mind after having a rotation in something else, and it just kind of throws them off track a bit. And so I guess I'm glad that I had that experience my senior year. So that way I came into school with more of an open mind. And I actually have two professors who are pelvic floor therapists. And I didn't even know that that existed until I started PT school. And a lot of people don't know it exists. So I was immediately interested, and I was just curious about it. And so I started picking their brains, asking questions, doing a lot of research on my own. I actually saw a pelvic floor PT myself for a year and a half, like starting a couple months into PT school up until basically the end of my second year. So this past spring. So I've had the patient experience. I have taken a few courses in pelvic health on top of my schoolwork already. I just finished my first full-time third-year rotation in outpatient orthopedics and pelvic health. So I've had some more clinical experience now. And I know that this is for sure what I want to do, working with anybody, any gender. That's what my passion is. I plan to pursue that and continue, taking courses and learning along the way. So.
That's awesome. I love that you mentioned that you didn't like one of your internships. I think that's such a good lesson to learn, that we're not going to love everything that we try, and it's worth it to keep going. We had another alum on a panel once, and she wanted to go to medical school and ended up getting a job as a scribe, because that's like what they tell you to do. And she was like, I hated every second of it. And she's about to graduate medical school, and if she would have just stopped, same thing. Where would you be? It's all about trying things. Now, Ben, I think you just graduated, but you landed yourself a job. Like, I'm pretty sure I ran into you going to work before graduation. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how you used your time on campus then to walk directly into this job, and then tell us about your summer.
Yeah, so I was a student worker on campus for about 2.5 years at ASU with the department that I'm currently with now in the full-time role. And I had kind of found this role from being heavily involved on campus from a few leadership programs. I was also a devil's advocate, which are the campus tour guides. So a lot of ways to kind of connect yourself with some peers and make some relationships. But yes, through the student worker experience, I was able to secure a full-time role with my department, which I was very excited about. It is not as fully aligned with health as I think I probably originally intended with starting the Science of Healthcare Delivery program, but you'll be really interesting. It's really interesting to see how often the word and topic of health comes up when we're talking about global education. That could be within the health disparities of certain communities that we're working with, redefining what health means, not only in the workplace, but in the education system, in higher education. So there's so many facets of what health is. And that's something that I think honestly kind of expanded my mindset taking the courses through the program of healthcare delivery, because it's not just a simple sentence. It's not just the word health. It's so much more than that. And everyone experiences health a little bit differently based on their circumstances. So with that, kind of going to your second question of what I did this summer, is part of the work that the University Design Institute does is external partnerships and clientele with global universities across the world and representing ASU on a large scale. So this summer, I had the opportunity to go to Ethiopia and represent ASU and the Office of the President with the government of Ethiopia and 16 institutions from Ethiopia, talking about student success, creating more student outcomes, student employability, and a lot of topics that were being brought up were centered around health and gender and equity and access and things like that. So even though I'm not directly in a healthcare setting, the administration education that I receive from the healthcare delivery program comes up very frequently, and having the knowledge of health disparities, health outcomes, things like that, even though I'm not using them every day, they do contribute to making educated hypotheses, outcomes, perspectives, and I feel like it really helps create a well-rounded education for me, especially working globally, because people across the globe face different aspects, different outcomes, different disparities, and having an open mindset to be welcoming different ideas and learning about different experiences is something that's truly important to be successful.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think we can't separate health from leadership. If we don't have healthy leaders, we don't have healthy teams. And I guess that's a little different than physical health, but I think mental health wraps right back up into that. We're really aiming to pursue holistic health for people and communities. And I think that's exactly in line with what you're doing. I want to ask everyone this, but Ben specifically, you had the student worker job and then you had a full-time job. I'm sure it wasn't just because they needed someone else in the office. What sort of things did you do, and how did you make that happen?
Yeah, so I started the conversation early on, about a year out from graduating, because there are going to be action steps that your team or the company needs to do in order to have space, have funding, resources for a new oncoming employee. So I created a lot of really great relationships, not only within my team, but within teams that we closely work with. So it's not just my immediate network, who I know has my back, who supports me, reaching out to other people for that as well. Taking on new projects, kind of trying out new things, asking lots of questions, asking why a lot. That's always a huge thing, to not be afraid of asking questions, because it shows that you want to learn more about something. It shows you have insight. The transition to the full-time role did happen quite quickly. I wasn't even completed with my bachelor's before I transitioned into that full-time role. But having a conversation and even just inquiring with a company that you're interested in, a recruiter, just to start to kind of have an exposure to the lingo, to the characteristics of different companies, different environments. I think that's probably the best way to start. And even just inquiring about questions, asking for informal meetings with somebody who works there, asking for next steps, always putting yourself out there. And it also having a really great LinkedIn presence is a huge thing, of having your profile up to date, having the summaries, having a picture, and making connections on that, because having your LinkedIn profile be accessible is a really great way to refer yourself or refer people to refer you to other individuals.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. And that's something you can start now as a student. It's great. Tiffany, you work with students now, and you were a student at one time. Wondering if you could talk about students that you see successful in a professional school. What are some things that they have done to prepare themselves well? What are some things these students can do now to prepare themselves for those professional schools?
That's a great question. Thank you. We often, the analogy we use in PA school is that it's like trying to drink from a fire hose. And so you go into, you are literally cramming so much information. PA school is set up as a year of didactic education and then a year of clinical rotations. And so you're learning everything in a year that is essentially going to be kind of the foundation for you to go out and base your career on. A couple things that we recommend, obviously, number one is a kind of a growth mindset, is having a positive mental attitude. And especially now, that's something you can, learning, understanding that new experiences help you grow, even though it might make you feel uncomfortable, being open to new possibilities, being open to different perspectives, very, very important. Establishing, understanding how you learn, and that this is something that I didn't figure out until the end of my didactic year in PA school. I didn't understand that I was a kinesthetic learner. I didn't understand that I knew obviously that sitting in lecture wasn't good for me because I would fight to stay awake, and I knew that I'd fall asleep on my books every night, but I didn't understand that the way that you learn is very different for different people, and identifying that sooner than later is so important, because understanding that what works for your classmate may not work for you. And so understanding how you learn and then helping to tailor the material to you as much as possible. And so for a lot of our students we just had a class starting now. So we have our class of 2024 that also just had I know you guys have a biology exam, I think tomorrow. My students just had their first Foundations of Clinical Practice exam this week. Just understanding that learning never stops. There's never a point that you're just going to be done. You're going to know everything that you need to know. And so kind of keeping up those habits, as you mature, your study habits may mature as well, and understanding how important that is regardless of what field, especially if you're going into health. Health is it's an ever-changing field. There's new recommendations, there's new guidelines, there's new policies. And so you're going to have to be able to incorporate new information into your routine all the time, not just while you're in school. And so understanding how you learn and process information is really, really important.
Wow, that's so practical. That's great. Thank you. That leads really well into Kayla, what I'd like to ask you. Kayla, you've really had the opportunity to pursue lots of education in addition to school. You're involved in these other organizations. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what that was like to get involved in those, how networking helped you, how you developed those skills.
Yeah. So like I said before, I discovered that I was really interested in public health from the beginning, from my first year, starting PT school. And so because our entire first year was online, on Zoom, with the exception of labs, it was a bit hard to find community within my class. And I ended up feeling pretty lonely because, you're starting this new experience and you don't really get to connect with your new classmates. But I had this really great new interest that I wanted to learn more about. And so I started just researching and talking with my professors, of course, but I found the Academy of Public Health, which is the specialty academy within the APTA, the American Physical Therapy Association. And so they had a really active student special interest group. And so I just jumped right in, and they had a bunch of coffee Zoom chats that they would set up. And so I was able to meet other students like me who had similar passions and who wanted to meet other people who, had the same passions as they did. And so that's where I really started. And I started meeting these people and met the directors at the time of the student special interest group, and just became more involved and stayed up to date with, events that they were holding online. And they were really active in connecting people across the country together. And so last year, when the time came in early spring to send out nominations for the next year's directors, I knew the current directors pretty well, and they nominated me for one of the director positions. There are 4. And so they had the election in the spring, and I got one of those spots. And I feel very blessed and lucky to be in this position because, this is my passion. This is what I want to do. And I have more responsibility now. and I have to do more of like the back end stuff, and brainstorm with these people that are my co-directors, and figure out how we want to best serve the incoming students, the first and second year students who have the same passions that we did at that time. So that's one part of my story. And sorry, Katie, what was your question again?
No, I just think I've really watched you take hold of your passion when maybe that wasn't like your natural personality to go after that. I mean, maybe it was, but I feel like you really gained a confidence, and I bet lots of people are in similar places, and yeah, I think you answered it, but
Okay.
but but if you had anything to say on how you like really found your voice, I don't know how to say this without making it sound like you like went from something to something, but you've always been great, but I really feel like you've taken hold of a voice and found a new level of confidence, and I bet lots of people here are kind of in that same boat. How do you develop those skills?
No, you're totally right, because I was very shy and introverted throughout high school and college, and I was slowly starting to come out of my shell a bit. But I think once I truly discovered my passions, I've been saying the word passion a lot. Sorry, guys.
I love it.
I just realized that. But I think when you discover what you really want to do, you just gain this sense of confidence. And I knew that if I wanted to pursue this, I really had to put myself out there. And I wanted to put myself out there because I could see myself doing this in the future and, practicing in this specialty. And so I reached out to my professors who were pelvic PTs, asked them questions, really bothered them a lot, probably, which I don't think that they minded. And really just started doing my own research with their help, of course, figuring out when I could take the courses, what that would look like. And all of the courses were out of state, so that was a lot to handle, especially on top of my just general coursework that I had to do for school. And like Ben was saying, updating my LinkedIn, just networking with like anybody that I could find, just putting my name out there. I have a pelvic PT Instagram account that I've really grown a lot over the past like year or so, where I've made a lot of connections with pelvic PTs around the Valley here and just nationwide. So I think that will probably really help me a lot in my job search and just finding the right fit for me. But yeah, I think just really putting yourself out there, even if it's uncomfortable, because for me, it's still uncomfortable. Like I have these leadership roles now, and I never really saw myself as a leader because I am still an introvert. I'm just more of an extroverted introvert now, which I feel like that's like a trendy phase right now to say that you're an extroverted introvert, but whatever, it's true.
Yeah.
So I think just putting yourself out there, getting comfortable being uncomfortable is like my favorite saying. And yeah, I think you'll find a lot of success if you just do the scary things.
Totally. Yeah. And these however many years you spend on campus doing your undergraduate degree is the perfect lab for that. There are a million clubs you can get involved in, a million research opportunities. Those are perfect chances. No one's expecting you to be perfect because you're a student and you're in a place where it's built for learning. So that's great. Thanks for sharing. I hope that didn't put you on the spot. It's just such a cool story. I want to shift things a little bit. The College of Health Solutions, we've really been on a move to focus more on justice, equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility. And it makes perfect sense because that in many ways it can't be separated from health and the health of a person. I'm wondering, it's sort of, it's like a two-phase question. It seems like I'm into this today. But Tiffany, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about, in your experience with patients, what that's looked like to honor individual people from different cultures, backgrounds, and maybe even ones that were different from yours, and what that looked like for you.
That's actually a really kind of hot topic right now. We are preparing to revise our curriculum here to make sure that we're also incorporating diversity, equity, inclusion into our curriculum. So not only for my current practice as a PA, but in educating future PAs, it's also very important that we kind of figure out what the best way to in any time you're dealing with other people, understanding your own thoughts and feelings is the first step. So understanding how you feel about certain things, and really it takes work to be impartial, because we all, just as humans, we all have these kind of natural instincts, and our experiences kind of shape who we are. And so going into patient care, sometimes you have to talk about things that are uncomfortable, or sometimes that make you uncomfortable. But the goal is ultimately to treat the patient with respect. And as providers, be it a dietitian or a nurse or the social worker, our ultimate goal is to provide the patient with education to allow them to make the best decision for their health. And so learning kind of how to go about that. And I think the first part is asking more questions than you're answering, understanding kind of where your patient is coming from. And that's something that even, I've been a PA for 18 years. I still have to work on. I still have to make sure that I'm addressing patients in the way they want to be addressed, that I'm using pronouns. These are things that I didn't really have to, or I didn't really think about 10 years ago or 15 years ago, even though my PA school actually did a great job of education, but things that maybe I wouldn't have thought about as a younger PA. So kind of constantly, just like I said, you're always learning, and you're always learning about how you can best interact with your patient.
That's great. Ben, I wonder if you could share a little bit about that too. I mean, you talked a lot about being an ambassador for the university, for traveling overseas. What are some kind of things that helped you work across cultures, across people that you would encounter from different backgrounds? And how did you learn that skill?
So I think that skill is ever evolving all the time. And it's always kind of behind that learning of who you are and learning who the rest of the world is. With the experience of being an ambassador for the university as a student, as a staff, and then traveling to different countries and different communities with ASU, remembering that you're not the most important person in the room, what you're there for is what's most important. And I think having that reminder of what the goal of wherever you're going to is, the main spine of the project, the event, things like that. I think that's a really great idea to start with. And having open dialogue and being very comfortable with learning, having new experiences, being open, being uncomfortable in some situations of, yes, there are going to be opportunities where you maybe make a mistake or you address somebody incorrectly, but addressing that and recognizing that is how you're going to help improve for next time. It's circumstance for this past Ethiopia trip that I was on. We did have colleagues who were on the ground in Ethiopia. So they did a really phenomenal job at informing us about customary things, interactions, things like that, that we wanted to know about so that we were presenting ourselves in an appropriate way. Because especially traveling internationally, you are someone who's going to someone else's community, and those communities have different precautions, different practices, things like that, that we may not practice here in the US. And that is absolutely important to recognize and also to appreciate that a little bit as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. ASU is another great place to practice that. We have over 100 countries represented here, and lots of opportunities to meet people from different cultures that can get you ready for that. Okay, well, oh my gosh, we have just burned through this hour. This is great. In just a few minutes, we'll have an opportunity for people to pop into breakout rooms, but want to give a chance for everyone to submit any questions you might have. I know we have a question in the chat now, but feel free to throw your questions in that are kind of more general, and then we can do specific questions in breakout rooms. But Raquel or Amy, I wonder if maybe these are questions that you have good answers to. I have some ideas, but I'd love to invite you both to chime in. The question is, what job might be right for a nutrition major that's in healthcare, but it's not a registered dietitian?
Okay, I'm gonna pop back on here. Raquel, I saw you unmute. You want to chime in?
I'm happy to do the second half of the question.
Okay.
Go first.
Okay, so nutrition major, majoring in healthcare without being a registered dietitian. So one thing that comes to mind is I actually have a friend and know a few graduates who graduated with either human nutrition or just any of the nutrition degrees at ASU. This specific friend graduated with human nutrition, and she actually worked for the WIC office here. So she provided education with parents one-on-one. So WIC is a benefit that some families, if they have a small child, or if they're pregnant and going to have a small child soon, they will receive kind of like this credit, kind of like a check to go purchase like nutritious foods. And in the process, they do meet with kind of like a case manager one-on-one, and they also go through just certain milestones that they should look at while the parent is pregnant or while the child is a younger age growing up. So nutrition education is a big part of that role. So that is one that comes to mind. So different roles in the community, I would look more towards like the nutrition education route. That's the first one that comes to mind. I can definitely think of more in the future. Raquel, I'm going to pass that to you now.
Yeah, absolutely. Having worked for the health department, I would definitely look into the health education. There's a lot of things, like Amy said, with WIC, which would be a great opportunity for that. But I also do have a resource. I'll share the link in the chat, and it's what can I do with this major? And of course, we want to make sure that, you know, your major doesn't always relate directly to your career. I'm a great example of that. I studied psychology and global health, and now I work for the Career Center. So there's lots of different ways that your major can take you. But I shared a link in the chat that does show what can I do with this major. If you'll let me share my screen, Kate.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
The nutrition profile pulled up. And so this is just a general idea of what you can do with nutrition. It breaks it up by area. So clinical nutrition, community and public health. So if you want to go through these, there's lots of different opportunities. You can see the different types of employers you could work with, and then also strategies of how to become career ready, how to become a competitive applicant for that area. So it won't specifically say whether you need a nutrition certification or not, but this kind of just gives some general ideas of places you can be looking. As same with our website, we do have MZ, which is career industry information. And give me a second, I can probably find it. But essentially what it is, it's job market insights. And so if you were to search nutrition here, you're able to see lots of different insights of the job market trends. And you can also look for some technical skills, career competencies, but also job titles. And so this is what I always like to have students search as well, because then you can look at the things that you might need for that degree. And then having a job title just makes things so much easier to look specifically, oh, they want this type of person. Let's make sure that I am doing the things to allow me to be a competitive applicant.
That's great. That's what a great resource. That's awesome. And I'm sure you have that information for all degrees. That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, a few things before we let you ask questions in said breakout room. Wanted to make sure you were all aware kind of what is going to let me advance coming next. So we have this going on right now on the 29th. Next Wednesday, we have another panel, the new set of people. It's going to be awesome. So feel free to join us for that one as well. And then October 13th is a networking and career development event. That's from 2:30 to 3:30 in Health North 101. You can register there on that little QR code. I'm assuming everyone can see that. And that event counts as an engagement opportunity under the professional development category in your Engage at ASU assignment. So don't miss it. It's a good opportunity. But Amy, do you want to share about the assignment? Or do you want me to share about that?
I can share about the assignment. So
Okay, cool.
the Engage at ASU assignment should have been introduced by all of your 101, by your 101 instructors so far. So the Engage at ASU assignment, essentially there are different components that we ask students to participate in, different activities on campus. And in addition to that, you're making connections on campus, building that sense of community, since it is your first year here. So I am actually going to just read off some of the sections on here. So a couple of the sections that we are looking for the Engage at ASU assignment. So it is required to meet with a success coach. You can connect with your success coach by going to success.asu.edu. The Student Success Center will have that. In addition to that, you pick an event in 4 categories, which professional development, career and professional development is one of them. So that event on October 13th, Raquel and myself will be there, and Raquel will be going over just different networking tips and then also further career development. So that checks off the professional development box. Other categories that we're looking for is the academic session or academic section. That could be going up office hours with your professor. It could be going to tutoring, the writing center, attending some of our health solutions, health talks that are posted on our events website. Another category is wellness. So exploring the Sun Devil Fitness Complex on campus, maybe attending a class, attending a support circle. So just overall making sure that you're taking care of your well-being. And then the last one is social. So it could be participating in a student club, getting involved by attending different events on campus. So those are the categories, and luckily we've made it easy for you. So October 13, that one is approved for the professional development section. So please feel free. They're all on Sun Devil Sync right now, so you can go ahead and register on Sun Devil Sync. I do recommend registering just because if there is any changes last minute to the event, we can just send it all out to everyone who has registered so far.
Great. Awesome. Well, I think we actually ran out of time. So with that, I think if we have questions or you we'll skip that breakout session portion and feel free to follow up with us and we will get you connected to any of the alums. Yeah, Kayla dropped her email address here in the chat. All very willing and able to help you on your next step. So this is a perfect opportunity. I mean, this is easy networking, just to shoot an email that says, thanks so much. You know, I learned so much or something. And then later on down the road, you just never know when one of them could offer a helping hand or advice or, you know, lots of things. So super thankful to Ben, Tiffany, and Kayla for joining us today and offering their great wisdom. And thanks to all the students who came as well, and anyone who watched us now on YouTube or in the future. We're glad you're here too. And yeah, with that, we will sign off. Adios. I'll stick around if anyone has any questions. That's a great thought, Raquel. Add them on LinkedIn. Great.
This was a lot of fun. Thank you.
I'm so glad that it worked out. Yeah, I love these. I love hearing from people. It just sometimes the scheduling gets a little crazy, but yeah, good stuff. All right. Any lingerers have any last minute questions? Yeah, I'm so glad. And I gotta come over there sometime. I want to see. Tiffany's like literally 1 block from where I sit right now. Funny. All right. Okay, we'll call it. Thanks, everybody.